Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Heyman Marrero from Urbander, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Hello, everyone, and welcome. And I am absolutely delighted to have my good friend, María Fernanda Saavedra, join us today. Hola, Mafe. How are you, María Fernanda?
Hi, Sammy, and thank you for the kind invitation to be part of this amazing podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a while now since you published your book, A través de mis ojos, through my eyes, because it's really a powerful way for you to share, right? Your experiences, your lived experiences, not only as Latina, not only as an immigrant that comes to an unknown country, but also as an individual that happens to have a disability, and you discuss very poignantly, right? Um, how a lot of disabilities are unseen, and the importance of acknowledging that, and respecting that, and being sensitive to that too, because sometimes we exchange ideas or conversations or interact with people and are completely unaware, right, about uh the full scope, right, of where they're coming from, their lived experiences and all of that, and you kind of like encapsulate that in your book, but also in everything you do. You're a very outspoken leader here in the community, not only in the Latino community or in the business community, but also in the arts and culture community, and we're going to get into all of that. But please talk to me about your beginnings, your background, and your experience as a person that has a visual condition.
Okay, yeah. I was born in Bogota, Colombia, and surrounded by a lot of siblings. I am a twin sister, so that's one of the big secrets that people love about myself is that I have a twin. She doesn't have the condition. I have my other siblings. Majority of them live in Colombia, and I moved to United States back in 2001. So it's been like 20 years now that I've been here actually. Um, and what motivated me to write a book was not myself, was actually my husband who kept telling me like for many, many years, probably 8 years, ago, he was telling me, oh, you know what? You should write a book. And we were joking around, as a couple, and I say, why? Because you are tired of listening to all my stories, and he's like, well, kind of. so so he encouraged me to do that. I was not thinking clearly. I think that it's a purpose, right? Because if I would write that book back and then, it would be a total different book that I have, the one that I have published last year. So then in 2015, I graduated from my master's degree, and one of my nephews, he came. He's so quiet, and he barely speaks. But that day he was so, I think maybe proud of me, and he told me in front of the whole crowd, auntie, you should write a book. And then I took it seriously, and I started like gathering information, looking for mentoring, mentors who can tell me how to do this. I don't even know how to do that. And finally that came a reality. um you know and that's not easy to write a book, especially
Mhm.
when you have so many of those intersectionalities and life experiences that probably not all of them are really good. So I try to convey that information that I have in my heart and in my head and my experiences to something a little bit more positive without taking away, the value that was by then. So I basically I'm talking about what's the life or how you can see through my eyes. So I
Mhm.
started like, like walking through all my life, and started like writing from my infancy, my childhood, experiences. At the beginning, I can tell you, Sammy, I didn't even know I had a disability or a condition. Since I was a little girl, I discovered that I had a passion for dancing. Actually, I used to tell my mom, like, I think I was dancing in her womb, you know?
Mhm.
Um, yes. So I discovered that thing. And then it came to the realization that I had a disability. When I was 10 years old, my parents discovered that I have a disability, and that was accidentally. So I was, I grew up with few resources, like scarce resources, but also without the resources that a kid with disability might need, to just to educate themselves, like, early intervention, strategies for the kid to advance. So
Mhm.
I started like having a lot of struggle. So I think that's a big part of my book when I speak about the importance of parents to kind of know what to do and ask for help, because that's something really, really important. I am 46-year old, so it was 36 years ago that I actually kind of like found out that something was not okay. For me, before that time, everything was okay. So I live a normal life, and I guess because I was kind of the shadow of my twin sister, I was always behind her. Whatever she does, she did, I do it. Um, People with disabilities or with diverse abilities tend to use more the common sense. People tend to say, oh, you're so smart, like it's something big. No, we are smart, definitely, but we tend to look for those resources, that we can use. So when kids tend to say, oh, Maria, look at there, look over there, oh, I never understood why, but I never asked myself anything like that. So that was my first approach to inclusion when I was at, my first years at school. So, and that's a big part of my book is totally my infancy, my childhood, and my adolescence years being a legally blind individual. Like I wasn't even labeled as a legally blind person. And why this is part of the conditions that people cannot see is because, as Sami said, somebody who can see me is not gonna understand that I have a condition.
Yes.
I was born, yes, I was born with toxoplasmosis, and I don't use a white cane, and I had a reason for that. I don't use like glasses or those kind of stereotypes that people tend to recognize on people who are blind or legally blind. It's like, oh no, they should have, thick glasses, or they should have a cane, or they should walk this way or other way, whatever. So when I was a teenager, I had vision rehabilitation services in Colombia, which basically it is teaching you how to live your life using different techniques and ways to do things. I had to do a big portion of orientation and mobility. I was really huge, even better than my siblings in, going in Bogota. I was like going back and forth in Bogota, using the, transportation systems really quite well. I learned how to do all of that. However, because people tend to label blindness and no blindness, there's no gray scale of nothing, which is the part where many people are. Like many people are in that gray scale. So we are not total blind, but we are not sighted either. So we
Mm.
are in that gray scale. So that's why people tend to get confused and say, no, maybe she's not blind, or maybe she's not, or she's, saying that she's, but she's not. So people tend not to believe and those conditions that you cannot see so well. So I learned how to use a white cane, but in Colombia, many years ago, and I think today's days, um, because I was going outside, we're going on the streets, to do the homework for orientation and mobility. I have to, use the cane, use the techniques but I still have some sight left. So that sight that left that I have, it's, it's make me like try to, see my
Mm-hmm.
surroundings. So people tend to not trust on that. So she's having a white cane, but she's seeing everywhere. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was bitten by people. I was pushed away when I tried to ask for help. So it was so hard, the kind of situations that I have to face in the streets when I was doing mobility, that I really, really was really afraid of using a white cane. I never use that cane anymore. So when I came to the US, one of the big experiences that I had was in one of the airlines. They took my cane, they opened my cane, they unfolded my cane, and they throw it away like if that was nothing.
Mm.
So I was not the kind of person who really knew how to advocate for herself. So then that was another layer to that. I don't want to use a cane. That I started like seeing a cane as something negative, which is not. I absolutely am aware that it's not. So because I don't use a cane and because I don't use a guide dog, people tend to think, oh no, she can see well, right? When the reality is, I don't even see the features of your face. So if I see you once, I'm not going to be able to recognize you the next time I will see you.
Yeah.
So it's all of this. So my book is basically, going through these aspects of lives, like when I went to college, like how I have to request my accommodations, how I got a 0 in one of my final tests because I was late because of the transportation. So how many situations an individual with a condition can face or can face in a daily basis is tremendously big. So that's why I was also like, yeah, I have to teach the people that is around me how I see things, how like to teach them how they can see through my eyes. Because I have that question. My husband is, how you can see? I mean, like, describe me something. And I'm like, it's hard to say because what I can see is, I'm not even gonna be able to say how is a 2020, you know, sighted person can, how you can see things. So it's
Yeah.
really hard, but people wonders.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, can I tell you? So I just want to go back a long time
Yes.
ago when you and I first met, because this was when you were working at Lighthouse, which is an organization that supports people with visual impairments, right, at all levels. But you received me. You were completely navigating the space, right, like a sighted person, and I had no idea. And then at one point, you had to like very directly tell me, no, you need to come closer. I can't even remember the circumstances, but then to me it was like an aha moment because I was one of those people, right? I was one of those people that had these preconceived notions of what, right, a certain disability might look like, right? And perhaps the skills of navigating a space or whatever it was, right, that I had in my brain, right, at that moment, that kind of limited, right, me being able to, like you just said, see through your eyes, right? What, how you could perform at your job and all of this stuff, right? uh um owning, right, your disability and actually having learned how to work with your disability and seeing people and listening to people and working in these spaces in a different way, right, but just as effective, right? And so anyway, so it was great because I mean, you're a firecracker. Since I know you, I know that she's like, this girl's got it going on and she's like always doing something. You everywhere, you're like everywhere, and you're just like embedded in our community, right, in different levels, in the business community, in the activist community, because you do all that, how do you say, advocacy work and all of that. In your work, you're currently, right now, you're working with the Coalition for the Homeless as a youth counselor, right, for their innovation program, which I think is fantastic. And so you've been able to help this very community kind of rip apart, right? All of these preconceived notions that they have. And then it's funny too, because you know, you like you said before, people are says, "Oh wow, she's such an excellent ex." No, you're just an excellent dancer that happens to be visually impaired, right? And so then it's like, look at the human being first, and this is what you've taught me, right? To look at the human being first, and everything that people bring to the table, because all of these other things are just external aspects of them, right? That are just a byproduct of being human, of just being, just being diverse and human. And so, talk to me a little bit about that, and about how you present yourself, and some of the anecdotes and experiences, like meeting like me when I met you, right? That but and you're that kind of person that always says yes. When we were doing some voter registration drives, right? I knew to call Mafe. I'm like, I'm gonna call Maria Fernanda because she needs to be part of this, right? And you say yes, and you participate, and it was just fantastic. And I just feel like you contributed so much to debunking, right? All of these myths and ideas, that people have, and there's just so much more. I really look forward with your new company, right? With Evolution DEI, that you're really looking to impart all of this knowledge to government agencies, community organizations, and even the private sector, right? To
Yeah.
help them better serve communities and people that experience certain disabilities. Talk to me a little bit about that, about how you've become, right, such a part of our community, and what kind of anecdotes you can share with me, because I'm sure you have plenty, right?
I do have plenty. And just so you know, we call that blind moments. It's
Mm,
just that those moments that you are doing something that probably is really clumsy, but not, because that's part of your nature as an individual with some condition. So yes, I can tell you that I'm really grateful, because in my country, people with disabilities, we really have to grasp everything with the nails. We don't have anything there for granted, or we don't have the resources that I do have here. And I know that that's why you can see me, walking like a queen, because that's what I said. And at Lighthouse, they used to call me the queen, because I always, like, I was posting and, using my heels and all of that. So, and, and that's the thing, in our countries, like in developing countries, they don't have those resources. So we have to do everything, like we have to fight, um, um, barriers, like
mhm,
in any kinds of barriers. So when you come here, which I did, it was really hard. Not that aspect at all, but the aspect of learning the language. Like everything here is so visual. Like 90% of what you perceive in in your daily, basis is visual. So
mhm,
how to adapt that to the fact that you don't know the language, you have a lot of, other stressors in life, and especially when when you're new here to a new community. So that wasn't easy, Sammy. I actually was the most shy person. I thought that I have a phobia, like a kind of a social phobia. Then I figured out that it was not that. But I used to go to, when I went to UCF, to attend auditoriums with like 600 people, 300 people, that just
mhm,
jump into the class and coming back. In Colombia, everybody knows you have a disability. I don't know why we advertise that so much, like we shouldn't, like, but here I
mhm,
understood the part of the confidentiality. Like in that auditorium with 600 people, there was just one person who knew that I was I needed extra time, that I needed accommodations, that was my professor. So we kind of grow up with that thing. I have so many anecdotes, like for example, using resources at UCF is the second campus, the biggest the biggest second campus I think in the in the nation, and every day you go in over there and there's another building. So for people who really need orientation and mobility like me, that's a challenge in a daily basis. So it took me a month to find out where the guys are gonna meet, for a support group for a psychology class. When I
Mhm.
finally went to the room, they say, "Well, guys, I'm sorry, but they have asked us to look for another place." So something like that is incredible, but it's truth. So I have to face like those kind of situations, which like I say, really, this is like a Murphy love. I am trying to, to get to a place, and then finally they move away. I'm like, oh my goodness. So my husband became my first orientation and mobility instructor because he always makes sure I'm going to classes the day before. I'm going to start classes. He goes and walk me around the whole campus. Like you have to come from here to point A, point B, whatever it is, before I actually found the resources to do that. So yes, absolutely. So and in terms of the arts and how I embed to the community, that wasn't easy. I mean, it took me like probably 3 hours to go back and forth from campus to my house. So when there were like these kind of, fairs, like job fairs and stuff like that, I could use the same amount of time, like walking over there, navigating the campus, going there. I could stand up on the door and just go back. I was so shy and so afraid of whatever I have to face over there. I wasn't able to do that. And I started that exercise in one of my classes, psychology classes, that we had to come up with a project. And that was a group project. And I begged the professor, please let me do it myself. Then I started going to, art galleries, which actually I cannot enjoy going to arts galleries because everything is so visual, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So, and then I start like recognizing like this is not a social phobia because I still can be surrounded, by many people. So when I tend to say, "Oh, I am shy," people say, "No, you're not," because people see me everywhere, like many picture, like in every kind of community. And absolutely, I always say yes because I have the idea of when we come together from the big diversity that we can come up with like a great ideas. We can come up with like great projects that can benefit the communities. um so it is very interesting because in some ways we have to divide ourselves by, okay, should I wear my blindness today or should I wear. So
Yeah.
I learned through social experiments. I am saying this because I'm going to tell you the truth. When people know me first by who I am, like my whole Maria Saavedra, Hispanic, white, short, skinny, whatever the people, perceive me, people treat me normal, like nice, like
Mhm.
well, like you, Sammy. And then when I just bring out the topic, I am legally blind, people tend to, oh, really? Oh my God. You see what I mean? But when it is the other way around, that people get to know first that I am a legally blind individual, then people tend to change their behavior. And that's true. That's totally
Mm.
true because people create, I don't know, probably a mental situation that, oh, maybe this person is going to become a burden because they don't take as human beings, we always tend to judge and be
Yeah.
judgmental. So that's one of the things that, happens. Like if you see somebody in a parking lot with, where the is the accessibility tag that, and you
Mhm.
see somebody just walking from the car and you say, what? That person's not is not disabled at all because you don't
Mhm.
know, because
Mhm.
it's something that you cannot see. So we tend to be so judgmental. But I can tell you, for my so many years experiencing, like, should I say this at my interview? Should I say that I am legally blind? Should I say that I am not? Because you know we have received so many responses, like most of them negative, when we discover, we disclose our disability than the other way around. And
Yeah.
coming to my dance thing, I was participating in a national congress, for individuals with disabilities last year in Colombia, and I was surprised why we as human beings tend to have the tendency to, okay, I'm an individual who use a wheelchair. So if I have a company or art or any talent, I tend to link both. What I mean by this is like we don't necessarily need to do that, because I don't want, if I am a painter, I am an artist, let's say that I have, I'm in the spectrum, under the spectrum of autism, and I'm a great painter. What I need to sell is my talent. I don't need to sell my disability. So this is a really big fight that I have been, having with many people. And that came when I was born, and I knew that I loved to dance before that I was an individual with a disability. That helped me out to understand this aspect. So because when I was in Colombia, I was part of a big project. We were the first artistic project, like a dance company that involved people in wheelchair, sensorial disabilities, and people with no conditions. When you discover in front of the public that you have a visual condition and you trip up over when you're dancing, people tend to attribute that to your visual condition, not like that any dancer can trip up over something. You see what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yes,
So
totally. I totally see what you're saying. Yeah. That it's like disconnecting, one thing from the other. Because you in that respect you're a dancer, right? You're a performer. You're yes, exactly. I told it, yeah, it's like anybody can trip, right? And so
absolutely.
your level of expertise as a dancer is a professional level, notwithstanding the fact that you have a visual disability. Yeah, totally get it. And but I've learned that through you, right? By by having all of these conversations. And I just want to thank you because you're always you show so much grace. You don't, how do you say, you don't assume this attitude of like, ay vaina, okay, another, like, what a stupid question, right? Like you're very open to answering questions directly with grace, and with examples, right? So people can say, huh, I didn't think about that, right? And so it's really been for me a gift, and I'm so happy that we're friends and that we've been able to
Mhm.
collaborate on so many things. I'm like so happy that you said yes to be a co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for the Arts and Culture Council here in the county. And that, that we're working together on several things, right, to really advance the arts in our local community, because I value your opinion, your expertise, your know-how, and because I know that we're very like-minded in the way that we approach things and the things that we want to advocate for. Right now, I wanted to
Absolutely.
also thank you and ask you for taking this leap of faith and starting your own business in the DEI space, Evolucion DEI, right? And tell me, what are you looking to accomplish, and what kind of help are you looking to provide as a consultant in the DEI space?
Well, actually, thank you for the question, but yes, absolutely. Eh, I had so much layers on my capacity to
Hmm.
do things that one day I said, but I wanted to put everything all together. I am just tired of doing things here, things there. I have to collect, myself and put everything together. And yeah, that's how Evolution DI was born, with the idea of helping not just individuals, but also, communities, families, and, the private and government sectors, the companies, of how to face these, people tend to call them challenges. But
Hmm.
if we educate people of how to do it well, then how to be inclusive, real inclusive, then that marks a big difference. So I think that there's a lot of need on that aspect. And I was like, okay, I have so much experience because I've been working my life with all kinds of people with disabilities, right?
Hmm.
So actually the blind community. I work with the blind community here in the US. In Colombia, it was more like deaf and blind. But yes, so definitely I see a lot of a gap, a big gap, and lack of knowledge of how to implement and innovate tools and strategies for people who have diverse abilities. Because people tend to think that, like, for example, those disabilities that you cannot see, like depression, like anxiety, like chronic pain, those disabilities can, actually um, impair your ability to do things at work if you don't have the necessary tools, if you don't advocate for yourself. So not just the community and companies need to be educated, but also ourselves. Like, when you say that you have learned stuff from me, is because I'm not afraid of answering questions, because that's
Hmm.
the only way that people can get educated about how I can treat you, right? I can
Yeah.
tell you, Sammy, people tend to think and tend to have these, perceptions that, oh, that person not only has a visual condition, but also an intellectual disability, just because we
Hmm.
don't do things in the same way that other people do. So
Right.
basically is that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna be gathering all my experience, because I am a social worker, I have a BS in psychology, I'm a life coach, and put everything to the service of the community, of the clients, of the agencies, be a consultant, be a coach, and also put my project, Huellas de Colombia Folk Dances, under that umbrella, because
Hmm.
that's how I understood diversity in this country was basically because of dancing. When I went to UCF and I spent 6 years teaching my culture to people from Vietnam, Brazil, USA, like so many parts of the globe, I learned how to treat diversity with kindness and respect, and obviously value that. That's a really a big thing. Like, when you have a diverse community, you are treasuring something really big. So that's just changing that perception on other people, and that comes with people with disabilities as well.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, it's kind of putting everything together and be ahead of the game in terms of like how I need to, you know like, I'm gonna give you one example. When I came to this job, the person who interviewed me never got to know that I was a person with disability, because I never disclosed it to her.
Hmm.
But when I started working with her, she told me, because I have to say something, right? At some point you have to say something. And now I can tell people I need accommodations, but if you don't have it, I can bring them with me. So I am bringing more than a problem, a solution. So it's teaching, both parts how to get together and understand that inclusion is not a trend. Inclusion is something bigger that
Yes.
every day in our daily basis we should exercise. Inclusion goes beyond a core value, and one of those big statements on
Hmm.
many organizations. It needs to come, to the reality that this is something really huge, that I exercise inclusion since my early childhood, and now I can tell, because my teacher saw something wrong. Probably was I got something wrong, so they tried to accommodate me.
Hmm.
That was a misperception that I have on other kind of disabilities, because they never check anything on my eyes. But the fact that I was tripping over stuff, they always thought that I was like a clumsy, something
Hmm.
was going on with my physical ability to do things. But on the other hand, I was dancing. So that was something really interesting. So yes, definitely that's why I want and have Evolution DI has now like probably 7 months, and
Hmm.
I'm still working, studying, and making it, grow up in a reality.
Yeah. Well, what I love about it is that, and when you mentioned before, about that people call, all of these things challenges, right? Like all of these, they try to put limits or limitations or making it look like
Negative
something
aspect,
bad.
yes.
But in your
Hmm.
case, you see it as an opportunity, right? And so while
Absolutely.
you know, and the fact that, for example, you feel that you don't have to necessarily disclose, right, all about you, because you want to show up as Maria Fernanda, because this is Maria Fernanda, right? And you want people to know you that way. And so then I find it quite gutsy and refreshing and interesting, right? That you kind of I don't want to say it's like the social experiment, like you mentioned
Ah, yeah,
before, right? But then, you know, it's like you and I'm sure that your approach is different depending on the circumstances and the context,
absolutely.
but it's quite interesting that you then present it as, oh, by the way, right, I need certain accommodations, and if you don't have them, that's okay. I can educate you and bring them along with me, right? Because you've already put into place everything that you need, to be able to navigate, right?
And it's, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
powerful when somebody tells you, like my supervisor left because she moved to another state. And when people tell you, oh my goodness, I have learned so much from you in just a short period of time, that's a
Yes.
powerful thing there. And
Yeah.
it this didn't come like this way always. I mean, it came because I faced a lot of discrimination when I disclosed that I got a disability. So I
Yeah.
knew I was not chosen, not because of my lack of abilities, because everybody has abilities. The problem here is when you go further and you further your career and you have a BS and you have a master and you try to do continuing education, but still other people are going forward, no matter what titles, no matter what qualifications they might have. The point here is you have a disability, and that puts you in a huge disadvantage. So I've been trying to, as you said, be like doing this kind of experimentations, like, okay, I have said this way, and this is the result of that. So if
Yeah.
I say it this way, let's see what happens. So I've been seeing and observing in all my aspects, even in my social aspects. I go and
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend who told me one day, Maria, I don't know, but before I knew that you were legally blind, I thought that you were drunk when you came to meetings or to, like social gatherings. And I was like, what? Why did you say that? And he's like, because you're so weird, you act this way and that way. And he made me realize that part. And I'm like, it's because the first thing that I go and observe when I go to like a big crowd, we try to observe what we can catch. Visually,
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Yeah.
much because everything is different. Everything is
Yeah.
just a bunch
Well,
of
I haven't
colors
I
and
haven't
shadows.
observed that. I haven't observed that, but now you're making me think about the last time that we saw each other, and I could only imagine, because you told me, I knew it was you creeped up behind me, and you're like, I knew it was you because I saw the moño, the bun.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes. So we tend to use those things. Something that I'm really good at that is like when people are walking, the body expression. And probably it's because I'm a dancer. So that's easy for me. Like I know how my husband walks, like his unique way of maneuvering his body or whatever,
Yeah.
Same thing happens with people. So I tend to recognize people for like so, different things that people
Yeah.
say, oh no, she's pretending, she can see. No, she's so smart because, no, we use the common sense. We have to use it a lot. We have to do a lot of stuff. And people just see me like taking pictures. I love to take
I
pictures.
know
This
that.
is
Yeah.
something that I really love. So I love to take pictures. And sometimes my sisters is like, oh my God, that's a great picture. Really? It wasn't intentional. It just came. But the
Yeah.
reason why is because I can see better when I see a picture.
Yeah.
So and people don't know. Like sometimes my husband grabbed the phone and we are in the same place and he say, hey Maria, look on the left, walk such and such. You will see steps. Just go there and take a picture over there. It's gonna be nice. So you see what I mean? And people can
Yeah.
I do all of that behind the scenes, but people say like, how the she's over there doing taking pictures so she can see well. No. We have our techniques and we have our ways to do things.
Your little
It's
systems,
just
your little
yeah,
tricks, right? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, the tricks, yes.
Yeah.
So, but absolutely, I am like, okay, that's Sammy. The ball, nobody else had it.
Yeah, I know the
That,
moño. I know. Now I'm wearing a braid. And now I'm trying to change it a little bit, you know. So I was like, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna wear. I'm gonna try to not wear the moño because I feel like my forehead is like growing
Oh,
from
I just,
doing
oh,
more.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I just stay quiet and see if I can hear some, like,
Yeah.
Sammy, you're really easy to recognize, whatever. Because when you're talking, you're talking. So I'm like,
I'm
oh, that's
loud.
Sammy
I know I'm
Marrero.
loud.
Let's go and say hi. Let's go and say hi. So those things, some little strategies that we come up with like in a daily basis, we actually have something spontaneous in our lives. But yes, I have faced a lot of really challenges and discrimination and all these really bad things that happens to people who belong to minorities, because that's a reality.
Yeah.
It hasn't changed in like so many years. So we're trying hard, but I suppose the education aspect is actually the key here, I guess. So that's what's helping me a lot to overcome those situations. So
Yeah, that's great. So, in closing, I wanted to ask you, how can you encourage people, or what can you tell people, that are interested in learning more, or that when faced with a person, that they think might be, you know um that have some sort of disability, what do you encourage them to do, right, to open up, and to be, and also to exercise mindfulness, right, when speaking about these issues, because it could be uncomfortable for some people, right? I know that at the
yes.
beginning, like years ago, when we met, I was curious, but you made it so easy, right, to ask just any question without any judgment. But not everybody's this. Not everyone's Maria Fernanda Saavedra. What can I tell you, right? But what would you recommend people that are genuinely wanting to be more inclusive and to better understand what it feels like, right? And how can we help? How can we be an advocate, an ally, an accomplice, right? And trying to make these spaces, whether it's the workplace, whether it's in business, whether it's in the community, more inclusive.
Well, I always have said, besides the education aspect, when we use empathy, that's one of the first key that people can appreciate, because when you're empathetic to somebody else and you treat them normal, but still you feel, you know maybe what this is for them to behave or to act in such a way, you have empathy, then you have the key of everything as well. Because it takes just a little bit of comprehension, and not just with people with disabilities, but with like single moms, or seniors, veterans, any kind of person. When you approach somebody with empathy and kindness, I think that resolves a lot of stuff. Solidarity, like be comprehensive of the situations, other people's situations, but definitely educating yourselves, treat people normal, like,
Hmm.
even if you know that somebody is has a disability, treat people normal. There's one thing that people tend to do when, let's say, I'm going to the restaurant with my husband, and if I carry on my cane, or people get to know that I am visually impaired or legally blind, they tend to talk to my husband instead of me. No,
Hmm.
treat people the way that you want to be treated. It's simple.
Right.
It's the golden rule. So to me, this is something huge. And in probably, people say, no, that's easy. No, that's not easy. It's not easy
Mhm.
to have empathy. It's not easy to understand other people's situations. So, and it's not easy to treat people normal. And again, if I go to you and say I'm legally blind, you are going to be treating me differently. I am 100% sure you're going to do that. Instead of like, if we, approach each other like, human beings, we're going to be sharing stuff, and the conversation comes along when you
Mhm.
do that way. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's in don't judge. Like, and again, many people, probably your next door neighbor, your next door coworker, might have gone through a lot of stuff, maybe depression, maybe other situations that cannot be seen, you know, but still with comprehension and with like, okay, understanding, then you can make some people's lives much better. I am 100% sure that simple as that, you can help a lot.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And thank you for that, right? Because sometimes it's just as easy as that, as not change your behavior towards people based on any little bits of information that you're getting, right? So
Absolutely.
that shouldn't change how you respond to them and how you interact to with them too. Yeah. So and empathy, obviously, and kindness is something that is also critical as we grow in this togetherness, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much, Maria Fernanda. This has been great. Yes, do you want to add something? I see that that you wanted to add something.
Yeah. Um, Something that happens with people who have any unseen disability is the lack of trust. Like
Mhm,
even coming from family members, people tend to not
mhm.
trust you because in some ways you can do better and in some others you cannot do better. So, oh no, it's faking it. So trust on the people. If somebody's telling you that that person has a condition, you have to trust. You have to honor
Mhm.
the word that that people is saying to you. Just something like that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And it's the only way that you can be supportive, like for real.
And build
Like
up and build up really healthy relationships. Absolutely.
absolutely. Thank you so much. I've learned that, you see, I knew this was going to be epic, because every time we hang out, yeah, I know we hang out in the community and stuff, but we really don't get to talk about this, right? In depth.
Absolutely.
We have had some conversations, right? And I've learned a lot from you, but it's been a while since we've had a conversation. I just felt it was important to get you on record, right? So that way we can share with everybody,
Thank
and also
you.
the great news about all the cool stuff that you're doing. I'm really so happy to know you and that you're part of my life. And I can't wait because I know we're going to be collaborating on a lot of stuff, moving into the future.
Absolutely, Sammy. It's been a pleasure to be on this podcast. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. And again, if that would it be in Spanish, would it be 2 hours, 3 hours, and coffee probably included or wine? But I really appreciate this, space that you're giving to people in the community just to create awareness of so many topics. So I really appreciate this, and absolutely, I'm so happy I have met you, and since then, I really think we were connected, and there's a lot of work to do. So absolutely, yes, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yes. Okay, Mama. I love you and have a wonderful rest of the week. Okay.
I love you too. Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.